Hey, what's up? All right, I just wanted to talk about something that changed the trajectory of my life and my belief system. I guess some might call it a testimony, but anyway, um, so I grew up in a Christian household and I grew up believing all of that stuff about, the Lord, Jesus, and everything. And but when I went to college, they would teach things that were contrary to those things. For one, they would talk about how they said that, um, like, religion and belief systems of those natures, or like the concept of hell, like they would say, like, these things were created to keep people in line. That's what they would say. Which essentially what they're saying when they say that is like, God didn't make man, man made God, is basically what they were saying. And so they would say stuff like that. Another thing was was a I ended up being a sociology minor. And so in sociology they're always teaching you that you do the things you do because you were socialized to do so. And so they would say, um, the only reason you're Christian is because you were born into a Christian household, or because you live in the Bible Belt, or whatever. They would say stuff like that. And if you if you're not really when you're that young, you kind of that stuff kind of makes sense to you. Like you don't have uh, a lot of young people don't have enough background to be able to fight these claims. I guess you don't have enough information or enough life experience to fight these claims. And so that's kind of where I was, and I hate that. Um, but that's where I was. And so after dealing with these things, these concepts, I started to just not believe. And I actually started to develop like a disdain for like God and the things of God. And it was horrible. It's actually something I'm really embarrassed about, but that's just something that happened, I guess. I just had this like I went from having faith and belief in God to just like having a disdain for those things. So anyway, a little bit of time passes. I think this might have been like the same semester, but a little time passed, and so one day the sociology club had like a meeting, and I went to it, and I was like, this guy came in, this guy, he was not like a he wasn't in the sociology circles, so he didn't know about the rhetoric that they would put out, all that rhetoric about you're only a Christian because of this and that, just making you feel like almost like you've been brainwashed into being a Christian, or like you shouldn't be because it's just something someone said arbitrarily and you're following it or whatever. Just basically minimizing, the truth of God and of creation and things like that. So he wasn't this guy who came to the meeting, he wasn't hip to all that rhetoric. So he just came in innocently just to get the credit, convocation credit or whatever for college. And so what happened was the people there, the sociology people, they started doing their rhetoric and their speeches, and they started saying all that stuff, that they usually say. And usually it would be people saying like agreeing. But this guy, he was like, what? He was like, this doesn't make sense. They were like, you're only Christian because you were born here. He was like, I didn't grow up Christian. He's like, I didn't want nothing to do with Christian. Like, I had no concept of Christianity. He's like, I wasn't in it. You can't say that I'm in it because I grew up in it when I didn't grow up in it. And they were just like, well, yeah, but da da da. And he's like, no. He was like, this is real. And he's like, they're like, they're arguing with them. And he's like, you can't tell me what I experienced. He's like, I'm in it because I experienced it. He's like, I used to be addicted to drugs and God took them away from me. And he, all this stuff. He was saying all this stuff, like, and they could not argue with his experiences. And I was just watching this back and forth, and they couldn't say anything to this guy. Like, he was just like, what are you talking about? This doesn't make any sense. He's like, I've experienced the power of God in my life. You're telling me that it's not real. You're telling me that it's just this and that. Like, he was just like, and he wasn't even being rude. He was just like, what are you talking about? He was just like, what? And they're trying to hit him with all that same rhetoric that they hit everybody with. But this guy, it was just like, that rhetoric was like deflecting off of this guy. Like, it was not like this guy. It was, and they couldn't say anything to this guy. So she just ended up, the woman who was trying to hit him with all the rhetoric, she was just like, she ended up being just like, okay, let's calm it down. Because they had no response for what he was saying. Because as he was saying, he experienced the power of God for himself in his real life. And he didn't grow up as a Christian or any of that. And, but he was like, I'm a believer now because of the things I experienced in my real life, So there was nothing they could do. They couldn't. And after that, I was done. I was like, yo, all of these stupid beliefs about, like, they're geared to tear me away from God and tear me away from the truth. And that was it for me. And that changed my life. And I went from, because like I said, I grew up in a Christian household. Then I went to college, and the college stuff was tearing me away from my Christian background. And then once I heard that back and forth, then I got back on the path of, believing in the Lord and following the Lord and understanding that He is real and everything like that. So that interaction changed the trajectory of my life. It put me back on track with, believing in the Lord and stuff like that. And I haven't been perfect whatsoever, but I think I'm doing better now. But anyway, that was actually a long time ago. I mean, that was like over 20 years ago. Like, that was a while back, but I'm just saying that, that interaction really brought me back to reality. And so yeah, that's what happened. And I just wanted to say that I never shared that really with anybody, but I just figured I would put that out there. Since then, I've just been, I've not had a lot of knowledge or wisdom or anything throughout my life, but I try to just kind of attach myself to, like, people who know more than me, I guess, and try to make sure I'm going to church and stuff like that. So but yeah, so that really brought me back to reality. And since then, I've seen some remarkable things. You know, I've gone to church conferences and seen some amazing things at those. I've seen the Lord answer prayers. I've seen just a lot of different things. You know, so yeah, you know, God is real and His power is real, and you know, I don't know. I just wanted to say that. But anyway, I guess have a good night. All right, peace.